Welcome back to Platinum Top 10. Here are your top 10 newsmakers.
Louisiana to Texas, the same areas hit hard by Hurricane Laura, which was Category 4, and that was just a few weeks ago. At this hour, estimated winds at just shy of 100 miles an hour in Lake Arthur, Louisiana. More than 200,000 customers without power, and that life-threatening storm surge. We are anticipating 11 feet or greater in some areas. It is the 10th named storm to hit the United States, the most ever in a single year. Louisiana hit by 4 of those. And Martin Savage is there. He's in Lake Charles right now. So, Marty, where you stand, obviously strong winds and rain. I can see. How are conditions deteriorating?
Well, the wind gusts have picked up dramatically. The rain has just been nonstop. The real concern here has not been, of course, the storm surge. The real concern here have been the issue of wind, and they're getting blasted by wind. Amazingly, they're actually on the easier side of this storm. But the concern for this community is, as you pointed out, 6 weeks ago, they were hit by a Category 4 hurricane. The damage had not been fixed in any way. In fact, much of the streets are lined with huge piles of debris. In winds like this, it all becomes missiles. The reports that we're getting from inside the city are that the blue tarps, thousands of them, which were on homes trying to protect them, are now failing and giving way and blowing through the city itself. It's clear that there will be additional devastation and destruction as a result of the previous debris as it flies through the communities. There were many people who decided to stay. You can only imagine they're thinking that wasn't such a good idea now. Power is already out in a number of areas, and they only had the power restored just about last week. So for so many people here, it's not just heartbreak, it's the agony of another storm on top of one before, and they just can't seem to catch a break.
Yeah, I mean, 4 named storms, striking that coast where you are. I mean, how are people handling it?
Well, the mayor pointed out, after Laura, 95% of the buildings in Lake Charles, homes and commercial businesses, suffered damage. 95%. There are still thousands of people that had fled Laura that have not been able to make it back. And now this other storm that comes. So we're not talking about hurricane fatigue, we're talking about disaster fatigue. And for many people, it won't be just starting from where they were. Their homes are going to be in worse shape. And the community is going to have to struggle once again.
Today, the sun set on a Kings highway that sure didn't seem locked down tonight. Instead, day one in the red zone was more like a drill, as inspectors from every city agency, even the Department of Transportation, went store to non-essential store, warning if they're still open tomorrow, the fines will begin, and finding deep animosity toward the mayor for singling out these neighborhoods to begin with.
He knows that most of the Jews are going to vote for Trump, and he doesn't want that to happen. So he thinks that if he locks us down and keeps us in our homes, then we will not be able to go out to vote.
For more than a week, there's been a startling amount of misinformation and outright hostility.
You call yourself a news reporter?
As the mayor and governor struggle to beat back a spike in COVID cases, largely in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens. But for 2 nights, mobs of angry men have taken to the streets, burning piles of masks and attacking reporters, claiming they've been targeted unfairly because of their religion.
This is something which is very devastating to the communities of faith.
Rabbi David Zwiebel condemns those protests and is all for following the rules. But tonight he sued Governor Cuomo in federal court, claiming new capacity limits of just 10 congregants are unfair for large synagogues like his.
Why in the world would a large shul, which has such a large capacity, be treated exactly the same as a small shul?
You're a bunch of fakers, you're a bunch of liars.
But in a time when everything is so deeply polarized, a time of screaming and mobs, a rational argument is hard to come by as the state struggles with a legitimate public health crisis. Tonight, the Anti-Defamation League worries all that vivid pushback from a tiny subset of Jewish New Yorkers will yield dangerous dividends for all.
ADL worries. ADL worries that this is going to be a concern, that anti-Semitism will rise in response to this, that people will stereotype and we'll see this as reflective of the whole community.
19 diagnosis. This would mean that what would have been the third debate in Nashville on October 22nd will likely be the final meeting between President Trump and Joe Biden before the November election.
Theater chain in the U.S. is temporarily closing its doors again, affecting some 40,000 workers. Regal's parent company announced this morning it will shut down its 536 theaters in America indefinitely starting on Thursday. Regal had reopened some locations in August after closing for at least 5 months during the pandemic. Postponed movies include, sadly, the latest James Bond epic, No Time to Die. They're pulling key revenue from the struggling industry. Theaters were hoping the 007 movie would sell more tickets, but it was just delayed again until next April. This has been a real blow to the movie industry. At least 40,000 people are in danger of losing their jobs.
One executive said we're like a grocery shop that doesn't have vegetables, fruit, or meat. Basically, nothing to sell. Yeah.
They were suspecting that the latest Christopher Nolan film, Tenet, would revitalize some of those prospects. Sadly, it's done well in countries abroad where they followed the rules and got rid of the pandemic, at least as best as they could, but not here.
Although I just had an idea about food in the theater. If they had takeaway popcorn, I would go for some theater popcorn. I hadn't had it in so long. Just a thought.
Designed to overthrow Michigan's government and kidnap or kill Governor Gretchen Whitmer while she was away on vacation. Now, in an indictment that reads like a movie script, prosecutors say members of a militia group met in secret underground room and used encrypted communications to hatch their plans, raising money online and training with firearms and explosives over the summer. Prosecutors say that this group was angered by Whitmer after she refused to loosen statewide coronavirus regulations earlier this year. Well, tonight, Governor Whitmer, who drew fire from President Trump for her response to the pandemic, is now accusing Trump of being complicit because she says he refuses to condemn white supremacists and hate groups.
His riffing rhythm branded him a guitar god and raised the musical bar for future generations. Born to a musical family, Van Halen bought his first guitar, a Teisco Del Rey, at age 12. He then taught himself how to play.
If you take lessons, then you're going by a book, which is based on a theory, whereas the facts are, again, you only have 12 notes, do what you want with them. Everything I do is based on tone and sound.
By high school, he was the lead guitarist in the band that would go on to bear his last name, Van Halen. In the span of 4 decades, Van Halen released over a dozen albums. Their 1978 self-titled debut sold over 10 million copies and was certified diamond. Its second track, Eruption, featured an Eddie Van Halen guitar solo that forever redefined the instrument. Van Halen's signature two-handed tapping technique allowed him to reach otherwise impossible notes. The sound was intensified by a custom guitar Van Halen designed and built himself. He called it the Frankenstrat, or Frankenstein. Part Gibson, part Fender, the Frankenstein became its own trademark.
The guitar is a pretty basic instrument. It's a piece of wood, it's got strings on it, tuning pegs, tailpiece, pickups, blah, blah, blah. Mine's more like a Formula One race car.
Van Halen's design eventually evolved into his own guitar line. But even with a replica guitar, there's no replicating a Van Halen guitar solo. From the band's 1984 hit, Panama, to his Eruption sequel, Spanish Fly, to his collaboration with Michael Jackson's Beat It. Van Halen's fast-shredding speed solos will reverberate for all times.
My whole life has been music. I could not imagine anything else.
Eddie Van Halen, a musical genius who pushed life's strings to their limit.
About those relief bill talks, tweeting, "If I am sent a standalone bill for stimulus checks, $1,200, they will go out to our great people immediately." Just one in a series of tweets in which the president also went after debate moderator Chris Wallace, the FDA, and Nancy Pelosi. In reality, a senior administration official tells NBC News a large-scale stimulus package is on the sidelines, but the White House backs a series of smaller individual deals, even though Pelosi has already said a piecemeal approach won't work. The Speaker of the House earlier on Tuesday.
So, Madam Speaker, why is the president doing this? Well, I don't know, but I don't know why the president does much. It's most unfortunate, and we will have a stimulus bill, and he won't win the election, so we don't have to wait for that to happen.
That's after President Trump killed any movement on a coronavirus relief bill, leaving millions of Americans in limbo. Tweeting he instructed his team to stop negotiating until after the election, when immediately after I win, we will pass something.
Stocks plunge as President Trump pulls the plug on stimulus talks until after the election,
sending the markets into a spiral. Pelosi had been in talks with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin for months over a deal to help people hit hard by the pandemic. Things moving slowly, but still moving, with Fed Chair Jerome Powell warning Tuesday of tragic economic risks if the government doesn't do more. Still, not long after a phone call with Mnuchin and key Republican leaders, the president pressed pause and pressed send on that tweet just as Pelosi was on a conference call with Democrats. According to a source on the line, she suggested the steroid medication the president's taking after his coronavirus diagnosis may be affecting his judgment. Top Republican Senator Mitch McConnell accusing Democrats of playing politics.
They didn't want to get a deal this soon. We'll re-engage after the election, as the president said. I think we do need another rescue package, but because of the pending election, we simply weren't able to get together.
Hallie, a lot of folks are watching this and kind of tuning out the Washington back and forth. I mean, what's the bottom line? If you're struggling, if you need a check, are you going to see relief before the election?
So that we can take that in a couple of different pieces, Savannah. Keep in mind, this is a president who wrote a book on negotiating and walking away from the table as a tactic, and he has shifted his position on stimulus relief before. So nothing's a done deal until it's a done deal. But keep in mind that of the three things that the president is pushing now, the Paycheck Protection Program, stimulus checks, and airline funding, the House Speaker has seemed open to maybe a smaller deal to help the airline industry. So that's a glimmer of hope, I think, for a lot of folks this morning. But the chances of broad relief certainly seem less than what they were 24 hours ago.
His health. The president is expected to host his first event at the White House today since testing positive for the virus. It comes 2 weeks after President Trump announced Judge Amy Coney Barrett as his Supreme Court nominee during a crowded White House Rose Garden ceremony. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, now calls that a super spreading event. Chip Reid is at the White House this morning with more. Chip, good morning.
Well, good morning. President Trump is planning to hit the campaign trail again Monday with a rally in Florida. But his first public event since testing positive will be here at the White House this afternoon. Hundreds of people are expected to attend, and some medical experts are already predicting that this could become another super spreader event.
I feel really good. I feel very strong.
In an interview on Fox News Friday night, President Trump said he had completed his course of COVID therapeutics and described his early symptoms as mild.
It didn't feel strong, didn't feel really strong. I didn't have a problem with breathing, which a lot of people seem to have. I had none of that. But I didn't feel very strong. I didn't feel very vital. I didn't feel like the president of the U.S. should feel. And I knew there was something a little bit off.
But earlier in the day, the president told Rush Limbaugh he was so sick last week, he thought he might not make it.
Just looks like it was going to be a big deal. And you know what that means, right? That means bad.
The president says he recovered quickly because he had immediate access to the doctors and the treatments.
We have a White House doctor who's great, and you have so many great doctors. So it's a lot easier for me than somebody that's, doesn't have access to a doctor so easily, where it's a big deal to see a doctor.
The president insists he's good to go, but the White House has yet to disclose if he has tested negative for the virus, which would indicate he's no longer contagious.
Afternoon. So talk us through exactly what the senator's involvement will be in these hearings.
Hey there, Yasmin. So Kamala Harris has been saying for several weeks now, since the whole Judge Barrett confirmation process sort of began, a nomination process began, that she will definitely be taking part in these hearings. It was very important for her to carry out her duties as United States Senator, in addition, of course, to campaigning with Joe Biden as his running mate as well. Of course, we're just a couple weeks until this election sort of wraps up and ends and Election Day comes around. And so she's been balancing a lot, with these judicial hearings that she has to take part in, as well as campaigning on the ground like we've seen, and of course the debate that just happened the other week. So today what we heard from her office is that she's actually going to be taking part in these hearings remotely from her Senate office, which is just a couple blocks away from where we're standing right now. And that's instead of being in the committee hearing room. You'll remember in 2018, we saw these hearings with Justice Kavanaugh. It was kind of a spectacle, right? There were a lot of members of the public who were invited. The media is there, of course, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then the nominee himself, and in this case it would be Judge Barrett herself. And so usually it's kind of a spectacle. It's a crowded scene and there's a lot going on, and because of coronavirus we're seeing that scale down a little bit more. And what you saw just in the last couple of days is a lot of senators on the Democratic side, Senator Harris, Senator Booker, Senator Leahy, speaking out and writing a letter to Lindsey Graham, essentially asking for these hearings to be postponed or delayed because of the risk of COVID. We've seen a couple of senators on this committee already test positive for coronavirus, and other senators who aren't willing to get tested. And if they're all going to be in the same room, you know, there's definitely a cause for concern on how this virus could spread. And so what you see is Kamala Harris kind of taking a little bit of a step back for her own health and precaution, because of course, Yasmin, at the same time, she's got to be campaigning out on the campaign trail with just these couple weeks left to go until Election Day. And we spoke with her campaign after the debate about how she's going to maybe balance, you know, these hearings along with campaigning. And they seem to be, looking forward to virtual events and continuing their commitment to meeting voters on the ground as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Yasmin?
She certainly has a busy few days ahead. NBC's Deepa Shivaram in Washington for us. Thank you, Deepa.
Kobe. His former agent turned Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka said in part, "Congratulations, Uncle P. Go Lakers. Wish Kobe and Gigi were here to see this." This is what they would have seen, confetti falling on the LA Lakers.
LeBron James putting on the finishing touches as he knocks down the three-pointer.
This morning, an unforgettable and unprecedented championship for the Los Angeles Lakers.
This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 17 will soon hang in the rafters.
LA dominating underdog Miami in Game 6. Finals MVP LeBron James winning his 4th title.
I want my damn respect.
His superstar teammate Anthony Davis winning his 1st.
I told him I'm going to give everything I got for us to win a championship. He told me he's going to do the same. And we went out there and we get it done.
It's the first championship in a decade for LA. The franchise now tied with their arch-rival Boston Celtics for most all-time with 17. But this win this year was unlike any other in NBA history. Players isolated in a bubble away from family. After the victory, James FaceTiming with his mother.
Hey, Mama, you are the reason why I'm able to do this.
And sending this message to the fans back in California.
And we can't wait to get back to LA to celebrate with y'all.